Great, thanks Jeff. So we're ready there with Darrin's presentation, so I'll hand over to Darrin to give us a real life example of something happening here in Australia.
Okay, thanks Joanna for the opportunity to speak this morning. It's still morning here in Western Australia, and I hope this will give you a small snapshot on what's actually happening on our farm. You guys in the east are of course 3 hours ahead of us with daylight saving, and yeah, I've been up since 3 AM this morning. We've had 252.6 mil of rain in the last 4 weeks or thereabouts. So getting up early is par for the course, trying to clean up this green bridge and get organised for seeding, which is about for us to commence on about the 20th of April or thereabouts. And I was actually over east the other week speaking at ABARES Outlook conference, and I think I came on about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock their time, and yeah, getting up so early in the morning, it was like hopefully I wouldn't fall asleep when I had my afternoon nap. But anyway, enough of me carrying on. The Land Cruiser Ute now has wheels. I'll explain that as it goes along. And I hope this, as I said, gives a small snapshot of what we're actually doing on our farm. So we're actually 17 kilometres northeast of Mininu, and Mininu is about 400 kilometres north of Perth. We're a mixed farm. We actually do wheat, barley, canola, lupins, oats. Run about 3,500 to 4,000 sheep. My background, I actually wasn't born a farmer per se. I actually used to work for National Australia Bank and started farming back in 1998. So this year is my 20th crop, and prior to that, as I said, I was actually an agribusiness manager with NEB for nearly 15 years, and actually married a farmer's daughter and ended up farming here at Mininu, and buying and working with one of my other brother-in-laws and sister-in-law. So that's a bit of a snapshot on where we're at and what we're about. About nearly 5 years ago, I got involved in digital agriculture, and I pretty much got into drones. Let's just say that gravity pretty much sorted that out. It's really good for plot work. It's really great for trial work. But it's pretty crap for broadacre. When we started, we had drones that were up for 7 minutes. When we sort of finished and got out of them, we had drones up for 45 minutes, and they do 90 kilometres an hour. We had them out to distances of 16 kilometres away from the operator, and doing stuff. We actually turned a John Deere 4940 into a green seeker, so that the drone would go up and fly, pick up the points, and then we'd come back and download that into the 2630 processor, into the SP header, SP sprayer, and then go and do some green seeking with that. So trying to get dual use out of the actual sprayer. But in all honesty, when we're doing broad acre and the amount of acres that we could actually cover with our machines and all that sort of caper, simply the drones just couldn't keep up. And as I said, gravity pretty much sorted that out. Once they fall out of the sky and they don't do things, they're not completely reliable. Yeah, at about $25,000 a throw for all your operating gear and all that sort of stuff, can become quite expensive. So I guess that really pushed me into digital agriculture, and what I really learned from that, and I think the key things to digital agriculture are you have to have a value proposition. You really need to understand what you're going to do as far as maximising of profit, minimising of expense, or saving time, or making a better effective management. For one of the real key drivers for me was getting rid of duplication of process. We seem to write things down in notebooks and then spend hours and hours and hours in the office transposing that information from the notebook into our desktops. And for me, it just was a waste of a lot of time. So there's lots of digital applications that we could use but unfortunately, as no doubt all you guys would know, connectivity is a massive issue, certainly here in Western Australia and no doubt across Australia. And the analogy that I'm sort of going to draw here is that you know, I've got all the tools in the shed, but it's locked, and if you can't get into the shed, you can't use those tools. As I said, it's like having a Land Cruiser in the shed, and it doesn't have any wheels, so simply you just can't drive it anywhere, and you can't use it. And at the moment, we seem to have all these digital real-time sensing devices, but unless we have connectivity, we can't enable those devices. The other key that I've really learned about digital agriculture is to have interoperability, and that's the ability for technology systems and software applications to communicate, exchange and collect data from across each other. As all you guys know, having John Deere machines or case machines or any others, a lot of them operate on different operating systems, and have interoperability across your digital network. It's really important so that you can actually have information that actually transposes across all of those. So for me, digital agriculture, it's got to be real, it's got to be relative, and it's actually got to hit the ground and make a difference. So it pushed me into this connectivity space, and yeah, how we're going to address it. So at the moment, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but I'm just moving up to the top here, and you know, as a grain grower, we make decisions all the time. Inputs, what varieties we're growing, what fertilisers we're going to use, spraying decisions, harvesting decisions, machinery decisions, staff decisions, weather decisions. It's just a never-ending amount of decisions upon decisions. And once we have a change in the weather, of course, those decisions can change. So I was trying to get a system where we added precision to our decisions, and I could make better decisions in the longer term. So on this actual slide here, I'm just trying to point out that as growers and even, you know, running livestock, we're always making decisions, and how we can collect that seamlessly and add real information and making good decisions and making better decisions, how we could do that. So in the digital ag space, and this is where we were when we started, everything comes into the internet, and we have paper, and we have cloud in the middle of that actual slide. You can see, you know, we've got a cloud for this for our paddock station. We have a cloud for our software. We have cloud for and paper, and is just an absolute conglomerate of places where it goes. And for me, you know, digital agriculture seemed to be all over the place. An iCloud for this, an iCloud for that. We've got apps with different sign-ins, apps that don't have sign-ins. We have a password for this and a password for that. Connectivity again was an absolute major issue. It worked sometimes and didn't work, you know, other times. We have a network of iPhones, iPads, Apex, Hardy, John Deere. We seem to have just file upon file upon file, and just an absolute, excuse the word, bloody library of information that we just can't seem to get access to or sort it out. So that really pushed me into the way where, all right, we need to sort out this solution and get our own Wi-Fi network. So now what we've done now, we've actually set up our own Wi-Fi network, and basically now it comes into what we call our Regrow Open Digital Agriculture. So everything comes into one common source, everything's interoperable, and feeds into the one actual service. So here in the middle we've got the digital ag it all goes into. It comes into our office and farmhouse and comes down onto our farm server. So all the information is fed to basically the brains trust, and it's all linking to the one common source. Of course, through our farm server we can get then linked into the internet, and then I can actually allow my agronomist or our advisors, or if I'm away from the farm, I can come back through the internet and link back into the farm server. I can also allow my cooperating organisations like CBH, my bank, access to our farm server, and we can transfer all that information. So for me in 2017, I just wanted basically one file. I didn't want a library of files, I just wanted one file, and all the information that actually would happen on farm all link into that one file. So at the end of the day, I'm just a cocky basically with a few ideas, and it's about partnering up with people who really know what they're doing. And I was very fortunate to run into a woman called Annie Brox from Regrow, and she's actually set up Wi-Fi networks into the remotest parts of Africa. She had a lot to do with the setup of a telco in Norway. She's actually Norwegian, a big company called Telnor. So I linked up with her, and basically she didn't have the ag side of things, and she had the Wi-Fi side. So I basically explained to her what I wanted to do and how we're going to do it, and yeah, put that all into place. Also linked up with a guy called Richard Riddle, who runs a program called Crop Manager, and had some links into the US with Conservis. So as I said, I just had a few ideas, and it's just really important to link up with people who you can trust and go from there. So that gives you a bit of a snapshot. So all the header information, sprayer information, seeder information, security cameras, all of that feeds into our farm server. So what you can sort of see here is the outline of our farm in the middle of that slide. Where that arrow is actually where our house is. And we're about 25 kilometres long and about 10 kilometres wide. So I've got a linking network that goes now right over the farm. We used to use a satellite system, and that used to cost us $250 a month for 6 gigabytes of data. We've just changed that over now because with the high-speed internet link, which is basically, we'll see later on a picture of it, a little dish that sends the signal from town. We've actually got a house in town, and we've put an antenna on the top, and we actually send that link out to the farm, which is 17.5 kilometres to the northeast of Minnie, and we've linked to ADSL +2. So now we get 2,000 gigabytes of data, or 2 terabytes of data, and it costs us $150 a month. And we can actually, with the speeds, we can actually get Netflix, all that sort of caper, whereas before we didn't have the speed, and the amount of data when the kids came home from boarding school suddenly used to completely disappear. And yeah, no one had any information they could use on their phone or desktops because the kids had come home and down it. So we fixed that problem now with so much information available, and the speed on upload and download works really well. So on this next slide here, it's an actual farm map, and the little blue markers are actually moisture probes. The yellow markers are our where we monitor the actual weather, water table. In the middle is our actual new weather station. We've got a weather station to the south, a weather station to the north that actually collects data every second of the day. We've got where tanks can be turned on and tanks are turned off, and basically 3 big towers, 23-metre towers that links the whole network together. Where the green is, that's the best connectivity there is. Where there's yellow, it's slightly less, but all is good, and the orange is where the actual signal goes out. So what we did some analytics in the beginning, and then went around and tested it with a computer model, and they actually went out in the Land Cruiser Ute and drove around all the farm with a little antenna to make sure we had full connectivity right across the farm. And the beauty about having a farm server working intranet, it actually allows us a really high speed, so we can transfer that information back into the mainframe at the actual house. So the farm Wi-Fi, our wireless local area network, it's a private network. We could allow other people access to it if we give the information. It's business grade. We have Wi-Fi indoor and outdoor. We don't have any subscription charges. And basically on the right-hand side there, you'll see these sector antennas. And these sector antennas actually put out a good signal out across all the paddocks so we can transfer information. It's quite amazing, whilst we've only shot point to point from town to the farm, the little dish that you'll see in a minute actually from point to point can actually shoot that signal 50 kilometres. So it's actually quite amazing when you get access to this information, and how you can actually utilise it. It's about partnering up with people who know what's actually happening and getting reliable information so that you know what how to put it all together. So basically, yeah, as I said, the dish links us to town some 17 kilometres away. And basically we have a whole complete Wi-Fi network right across 6,500 hectares. So on the left-hand side, that's an example of a paddock station. We'll have a moisture probe out in the paddock. The main one goes down about 1.4 metres, and now we have a raft of them at about 800 mil across the farm. So these will basically cover all soil types, and at any one time I can actually go through and have a look in the platforms and dashboards and see where my moisture is. The photo in the middle is a little dish that goes off to town, the one on the top. There's a little dish underneath that shoots a signal or the beam to our sector antennas and enables our own farm network. And on the right is an example of actual weather station. So that does delta T factors, humidity, wind speed, wind direction, rainfall, all that sort of caper, and collects that every minute of the day. As I said, basically the brains of the farm IT system is our farm server. So in my office we actually have a farm server, and I can download all my yield maps, all my storage documents, everything that's happening on farm comes straight into our server rack. And it really gives that ability of speed and a real commercial application as far as connectivity. If I'm away from the farm, I've got a little app on my phone, and I can just press that, and instantaneously it'll link me back to the farm, and I can pull all that information from that server back to my phone wherever we are in the world. It's secure, it's encrypted, so people can't actually get access to it. You can see everything that's happening on the farm while you're away. Examples that have our paddock station data, our dashboards where our water is and our profile of soil. I've actually got a couple of security cameras now set up, one across where we store our fuel of about 50,000 litres, and down the driveway, so if we're away and we're not here, it triggers when somebody comes up the driveway, as it is rural and remote. Well, they don't regard themselves as remote. Mini's got a population of 400 people, and Gelton's about 115 kilometres away from us, which has 40,000 people. But yeah, not everybody's around, and people on farms will understand that. Our controllers on turning troughs on, troughs off, tanks on, tanks off, and all that sort of caper. So it's really quite exciting, and the speeds. I mean, when we link in, I was in Sydney the other day. We had a download speed of 78 megabits a second and an upload speed of 45 megabits a second, a ping of 21 milliseconds. So that's just unheard of and works really well. So I don't have a lot of backhaul drag as such, and we seem to be able to get all the information through the pipes pretty good. So now what we've done, we've actually designed these farm dashboards. On the one on the left, we've logged up all the wheat phenology, canola phenology, barley, and all of those. And through our program, through Crop Manager, we can actually, once we start planning for the season, we can actually see at any time where the phenology of the plant was. Rainfalls, all data is all collected, and of course all our weather information, and turning tanks on and turning tanks off for stock. So all that sort of stuff has been all put together. And it's been a really big job, but we're learning, and we've got some really good programmers working with us, so it actually is real, relative, and can save us some time. When I came back to about open technology, that little box on the left-hand side, what we call the Regrow box, is to basically transfers the information off to the Wi-Fi and allows that information to be processed and used and turning things on and switching and all that sort of caper. So we can monitor our tanks, get all the information from the paddock stations and send that to the server. We don't do any irrigation, but you can actually link that in as well. So as I said, everything to do with weather can come back through here as humidity, leaf wetness, soil moisture and all that sort of caper. We actually have a big 900 tonne silo and I can also do my fan controls and all that sort of stuff digitally. Also with our machines, all the latest John Deere gear now comes out with all the right stuff in regard to connection to the internet, but the older stuff doesn't. So if you put, as long as you've got a CAN bus system, we can actually put that Regrow box into the tractor or header or anything else, and that'll actually enable the information to be transferred back through the system. At harvest we run 2 headers, and in the mornings my wife and my sister-in-law used to go off and fill up the headers, etc. Now what we can do, we can program it so they'll send them an actual message on their phone to say that the headers need refueling in an hour, so there's no excuses anymore. The girls have to get there on time. And yeah, things like oil changes, monitoring, can actually let John Deere mechanics in remotely to get into our system. So it allows and enables all of those sort of things as well. As I said, we can remotely turn fans on and turn fans off from silos, but open technology creates interoperability, and yeah, if you've got that interoperability, it makes life a lot simpler. You don't have a whole lot of other systems. Getting back to my value proposition, simply it's going to allow me to make better decisions, and it might actually allow me better time management. We'll get rid of duplication of process and hopefully make some more money, give me more confidence in our decisions, and really, and more importantly, allow more time to do the things that we really enjoy. And those photos are just a few photos of my daughter and my son, and of course Steph in the middle, and our trusty dog Jeffrey. And I love fishing, and we were lucky enough to have a boat and go out to the coast, which is about 60 kilometres to my west. And yeah, so if we can farm a little bit smarter, save a bit of time, really do the things that are important in life, spending time with the family and seeing the kids do their sport and everything else. So I think that's about enough from me. So if you've got any questions, I'm actually on Twitter, so DKL Racing, that's another story. But yeah, can be contacted through Twitter or my email address. So over to you, Joanna.
Great, thank you, Darrin. We'll just wait for any questions to come in again through the questions pane, or feel free to raise your hand and you can ask that question verbally. Darrin, go back 5 or 7 years when you first started to look into this digital ag. If there's people on the line today who are interested to get cracking, do you have any suggestions of how others might start, or what are those first small steps to, I guess, tackle the beast?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, Joanna. And look, what I've tried to do is make it like a bolt-on process. Really importantly, you need connectivity. You don't really need connectivity across your whole farm and everything, but what we're doing with mapping and all that sort of caper, I needed that longer term. But to get the the toe in the water, it could be as simple as just having connectivity across to your rain gauge, and the simple process of saving time. Like we've got 8 rain gauges across our place, and now I don't have to drive for an hour going around collecting the information. And as they say, quality information in gives quality information out. Sometimes Steph would go and check the rain gauges and forget to pass that off information from the notebook to me and things like that. It's pretty satisfying. We can just sort of sit at the kitchen table and collect that information all around the farm. But it could be just as simple as getting your toe in the water and setting up a rain gauge, and that's your introduction into digital agriculture, really. And then building upon that, I then went into moisture probes and built from there. Whereas now we're getting into all that sort of stuff with analytics and looking at how much fuel we're burning and occupational health and safety and all that sort of information. So I tried to make it a bolt-on thing, so you can start small and just basically keep building on upon that. When I was talking about value propositions, for me the real kicker was 2 years ago when we got into moisture probes. I had about 250 tonne of urea in the shed, and we're in that stage of phenology where, oh, do we put this urea on or do we not put it on? And for me, we went through all the analytics and we looked at the moisture probes to see where the moisture was, the stage and the phenology of the crop, and I decided that, oh look, I just don't think the potential and the residual nutrients in the soil, we just won't add any urea. I'll keep that 250 tonne for later on or next year. And it actually worked out and played the right way, and we actually didn't need it. The year turned out a little bit drier towards the end, and I think we averaged a bit shy of 2 tonne, but I really didn't need to put that urea on. So that, when I was talking about value propositions, 250 tonne of urea at say $500 a tonne, suddenly it's completely paid for the majority of my network. So that was the real kicker for me to getting that value proposition, be it the return and making a better decision. So yeah, I guess that's an answer to your question.
Yeah, and I guess following on from that, we've got a question from Graham about the kind of skills or people that you might want to try and look for or get in touch with to kind of make sense of that start. Obviously, you've got a great network of people around you that are assisting you to get this far.
Yeah, no, I guess when I go into the drone space, farm media and rural media chase you up, and I suppose, not that I'm suggesting you go and do this, but you suddenly had a profile, and I guess being on the Western panel of GRDC and a few different things, and I was doing a little bit of things out there, and a few people were talking locally, and I guess it just, through the rural and agriculture is a small business in a lot of ways, it has a small network, and your name got out there, and I guess that's where I ran across Annie Midwest Development Commission, got in contact, well, Annie got in contact with them, and then they said to her, do you know any growers that are doing a little bit things different, or, and they put my name out there. But I guess coming back more so to the question is doing your research and your due diligence, and the best thing to do is find out who they've been working with and actually trying to get a referral information from the people that they've been dealing with, so that you understand what they can deliver and what they can't, and asking who are you dealing with at the moment, and whether you can have a referral and ask questions that way. It's always a good monitor on how they're operating and what they are, and certainly be really clear on what they can deliver and what they can't, but certainly be aware that you can make errors along the way. We've made plenty of errors, it cost us a few dollars, but now I think I've sort of fine-tuned it. But yeah, it just takes time, confidence, and don't be afraid to ask the silly question, and just make sure that any not contracts per se, but anything you're into, you understand what their perspective is, and they understand what yours is.
Fantastic. I'm just looking at the questions here about what's next. Did you do a lot of the setup yourself for the equipment and all the sensors, or is that something you outsourced as well?
We pretty much did most of that ourselves, knowing where I wanted to put the moisture probes and learnt how to put them in. There's been plenty of trench work done with cables, and that's a good point too. We're doing a little bit of stuff with wireless now, and I would strongly recommend wireless. When you get a 56-foot seating bar, they make short work of moisture probes, and they also rip up cables. So, and you learn by experience to make sure your cables are well and truly underground. Even things like foxes have this, they can smell this little white powder that's in, it's not drugs or anything like that, but it's a white powder that actually stops the cables rubbing inside the coax. And these foxes seem to love this white powder. We didn't bury the cables 1 week, and we got up there and they chewed all these cables. So you learn by experience, and we make sure we bury the cables nice and deep now. yeah, no, we do most of it ourselves. We're lucky enough to be able to do that. Putting up our own towers, all that sort of stuff. But as I said, if we're not sure, we just go and find out and try and get the person that can do the job. Electronically, we've got some really good specialists with Regrow and his company, and yeah, I bounce things off them and vice versa. But you'll find that they actually ask you lots of questions on what crops are this and what crops are that, and lots of ag decisions. So it's a real cross-pollination of ideas and information transfer, I guess.
No worries. So everyone, we're approaching 1 o'clock, but we've just got 2 more questions that we might get Darrin to answer before we log off. So feel free to log off if you don't have time to stick around. You can always watch the recording to catch these last couple of questions. So thanks for joining us. And if you are on your way out, make sure to answer our survey before you go. Thanks for joining us. But we've got one more from Prit here. Darrin, do you need flat country? Do you need your dishes need line of sight from town and around your land parcel? Can you provide any insight in terms of topography and how that impacts on the network?
Yep, topography has a major impact. So it's really important. When we first did that computer model, my country's not all flat. So we've got quite a lot of breakaway country and quite a lot of hills and things like that. So what we did with the computer models, we then tested it. We actually put up the towers, a temporary one, and then we drove around in the ute with a little antenna out the side, and we actually basically ground truth the computer model. But rest assured, Annie Brox, who is, originally from Norway, she actually put in a Wi-Fi network right across Norway, and whilst we might think we have a few mountains and a few hills in Australia, Norway has some stuff that is just quite incredible. And Annie, had a lot to do with the implementation of all of that. So, and it's quite funny, in her sort of broad Norwegian accent, she said, our farm is pretty much like a pizza compared to what she's dealt with in the past. So that, it's not a major thing. In today's technology with antennas and aerials, all that sort of caper, it's not a real big issue. If you're in really massive areas, you're just going to have a few more antennas and stuff, but the actual signal goes through trees, goes around areas. It's quite remarkable how it sort of feels its way out and gets to places. The only thing that sometimes is when the actual water gets on trees when it rains, which is great, on the leaves. Sometimes there's a little bit with that. But rest assured, no, it's today's technology. And the other thing is the cost. From where we started and where it is today, I reckon the cost has probably gone close to being half what it was when we first started all this journey. Technology is getting just cheaper and cheaper, and the reliability and the builds are just getting better and better.
Great. And in agriculture, we often kind of look over the farm gate and see what people are doing around us. Have you seen other people, particularly in your district and regions, see your success and invested in similar technology, or are you still kind of forging the path?
And look, I'm one of those guys that I'm really lucky to go farming and really do appreciate that opportunity. I'm involved in my local research and development group, the Community Learning Group. I used to serve on the board of that. But I've tried to are making our farm open, for visitors and field days, and we're going to set it up as a reference farm so guys can actually come along and you know what growers are like. You've got to touch it, feel it, see it. It's all very well talking the talk and to walk the walk, but until a grower actually gets there and gets inside a tractor or gets inside and sees it actually happen and how the antennas are constructed, it makes it real and relative, and that's what I said, hits the ground. So we've set up a reference farm here, and we're going to do some stuff with that. We look like we're going to set up with Regrow. I've got a pretty good partnership now with Annie, and I'm actually coming into that space a little bit off farm. So she's actually made me head of partnership programs and agronomy, and we're going to set up hopefully a reference farm with some other growers who now I've got linked into in New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria and South Australia. So try and get a reference farm in each state right across Australia and really build on that, and have some field days and all that sort of caper, so that you know, people can understand how and give an idea and advice how to set it up and move forward.
That was going to be my next point. We need to have one over east. And one final question, and we'll let you go, Darrin. How many Regrow boxes do you have around your farm, and can you give a bit more about what their capabilities are?
Well, basically, the Regrow box is basically like, it's a transfer box, or it's open sourced, so it actually enables the information from where you want to drag it from to transfer it in a format that links back into the system. So it's the way of like having what they call an API, but it's just a little transmitter basically that moves the information. We were going to get these made in China, but they just wanted too many in a batch, and we're on about a second iteration of this actual development of this box. So we're actually going to get them made in Austria, and I think we can do runs of 50 or 100 or thereabouts. So any old tractor or any old sprayer that doesn't have the current technology in its format, we can actually I can actually retrofit that in. There's an Regrow box in our paddock stations. There's an Regrow box in our transfer station. So that's the little device basically that enables the enablement of the technology, and of course the backbone of the Wi-Fi system is, needs to signal back to the server. So really, I suppose you're going to need the box, you need the network, and then you need the platforms on your desktop or iPad or iPhone so that you can interact. And I say it's a real key with open source technology. You're not locked into contracts and all that sort of caper by one format, by buying a thing that open source. It's as long as you've got the link in there, you can do it. So you can piggyback onto all that sort of stuff, and it's just basically a plug in or stick a wire in, and it's so we're developing that at the moment, and got a second line coming out, and we'll go from there. And they're not overly expensive, just ballpark figure that they're about between $100 and $150 to produce roughly. And I say, they're not overly expensive, and the cost of that technology is getting cheaper and cheaper.